Welcome everyone to this week's teaching of Kamalashila's stages of meditation. We'll now begin with our prayers.
To the teacher endowed, transcendent destroyer, one thus gone, foe destroyer, completely and fully awakened one, perfect in knowledge and good conduct, one gone to bliss, knower of the world, supreme guide of beings to be tamed, teacher of gods and humans, to you, the Buddha endowed, transcendent destroyer, glorious conqueror, Shakyamuni, I prostrate, make offerings, and go for refuge. When O supreme among humans, you are born on this earth, you paced 7 strides and said, I am supreme in this world. To you who are wise, then I bow. With pure bodies, form supremely fine, wisdom ocean like a golden mountain. Fame that blazes in the 3 worlds, winner of the best supreme guide, to you I bow. With a supreme science, face like a spotless moon, color like gold, to you I bow. You are immaculate, the 3 worlds are not, incomparable wise one, to you I bow. Great compassionate protector, all-knowing teacher, field of merit and good qualities, vast as an ocean, to the Tathagata I bow. Through purity, freeing from attachment, through virtue, freeing from the lower realms. Unique, supreme, ultimate reality, to the Dharma that is peace I bow. Having freed themselves, showing the path to freedom, too well established in the trainings. The holy field endowed with good qualities, to the Sangha I bow. Do not commit any non-virtuous actions, perform only perfect virtuous actions. Subdue your mind completely. This is the teaching of the Buddha. A star, a mirage, a flame of a lamp, an illusion, a drop of dew, a bubble. A dream, a flash of lightning, a cloud, see conditioned things as such. Through this merit may sentient beings attain the state of all-seeing, subdue the foe of faults, and be delivered from the ocean of cyclic existence, perturbed by the waves of aging, sickness, and death. This ground anointed with perfume, flowers strewn Mount Meru, foreland, sun and moon, imagined as a Buddha land and offered to you, may all beings enjoy this pure land. Venerable holy gurus, in the space of your truth body, from billowing clouds of your wisdom and love, let fall a rain of the profound and extensive Dharma, in whatever form is suitable for subduing sentient beings. Idam Guru Radna Mandala Kam Niryatayami. I take refuge until I have awakened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the merit I create by listening to the Dharma, I will attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings. I take refuge until I have awakened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the merit I create by listening to the Dharma, I will attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings. I take refuge until I have awakened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the merit I create by listening to the Dharma, I will attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, Randisha. The next year got shorter. Or the tango to Teslam. I chose Banda Adisha, Lamdre, Nalusungudua. Gashi Tamni, Kandaki, Koet, the Watsam Dala. Rangi Tondo Yeshiva, Kibutin, Tamashesa. 당가라도 최 쪽도 당부 최 거주도 내려 아니 랑 껴치마 하다미 껴상부지 도에 셔도 와 거에 대화 좀 달라 랑이 던던 예시도 뒤에도 안에 내 손을 막이 베체 하다미 껴상부지 도에 셔도 니 시알아 쳐봐 와 랑조체 랑이 남미 랑이 김자 랑이 쳐봐 저 얘나야 랑다 랑초게 대화 쪽에 동해시에 전달이 시알아 쳐봐 게 있어 신이 판바 쪽에 있어 어디 당부들에도 와 전에 대제마들이야 기본 dengue 값서 다이나니 셴도시 다신 챌린지다 다시도 와 나서 초지 송차도 니 셴다 셴셰 심제래 초니 치도 나저 초다 컨지 초세라 와 소스 낭미 초세 소스 롱베 초 소스 미리 초세로 니 셴다 지시 니 차다시거든 심제래 르니 수치네 랑초다 셴조니 수치네 차단시기도 와. 이 매번 소했던 달리 기분 dengue 체동도 와. 닥쳐던 셴조 매번 셰셰. 와. 닥쳐던 셴조니도 매번 셰. 차단으로 따야 된다려. 이게 제일 기분 챔베셔 될이야. 단대 기분 충분다 기분 dengue부터 소소소 단다지 지고라. 이내고 라진지 소치고 때 닥쳐던 셴조던 샬라 차와치도 방도 와. 다 기분 챔베 값소 다그베 현재 버셔라 다그서데 현재요 말에 심지어 상마탐제 랑기 쳐라 랑기 니에 쳐라 마도 자실로가 자요 말도 다그베 현재 버소솔레 현재 버셔 대전달이야 라 현재 때 타르심버 주발은 누가 용수 쪽모에게 탑던 시럽야 상보던 신이가 타르심베 강사 개발 신신 교내 때는 심지어게 된식이 삼사 삼로들이 기부 전부 삼로쓰기도 와. 어디 등하라서 기부 섬기 람라 림기 장안에 아니 심지어 탐지게 더 통계 교육세 연대 군대 기부 시던 교사기 대체도 최년기 요섬 그런 사람이 삼버셔서 어디야. 자유매다.
Katrina, we cannot hear you.
Am I unmuted now? We'll take it a bit.
Yes.
Sorry about that. So here, as the Pandit Atisha has said in his lamp for the path, describing the initial level of Dharma practice, it says that those who are still attached to the excellent things of samsara, who abandon harmful actions towards others in order to attain their own aims, this is kind of the lowest level of a practitioner. So here, this kind of being is striving for the good things within samsara. They want to gain a good rebirth and so forth. And so in order to do that, they refrain from harming others. They hold themselves as more important, their side, their family, their community, and so forth. But in order to attain their future happiness, they recognize that they need to stop harming others. And therefore, that's the initial kind of level of practice, is someone who abandons harm in order to attain only their own aims. And then we move to the middling level of practitioner. And that kind of practitioner still has a sense of their own aims being primary or most important, but they recognize that dividing into these categories of me and mine, and then the sort of category of other, gives rise to attachment and hatred, which in turn leads us to create karma and so forth. And so in order to get rid of that, they abandon the idea of my side and the other side in order to eliminate the kind of attachment and hatred or hostility that arise from those. And this is for the purpose of attaining their own liberation alone. So when one moves then beyond that to the practitioner of great capacity, this is a practitioner who is no longer holding their own aim as primary or holding themselves as more important than others, but instead holds others as more important. And so getting rid of this idea of the category of like me and mine and others, or friend and enemy, but rather seeing all sentient beings as worthy of our love and compassion and worthy of working for, one strives to attain this kind of highest state of Buddhahood, where when one has developed all good qualities and removed all faults in order to be able to benefit these beings that one holds as so important. So here at the being of great capacity, they recognize that while currently we don't have the kind of capacity to fully benefit other sentient beings, by striving to attain that state of Buddhahood free from all faults and endowed with all good qualities, we can be of such benefit to others. And with that motivation, we should then listen to the teachings.
Oh yeah. But then this thing and kasi chinsari dire so. Pagi kasara. Sambuche bala soba yala tunji kone ne. Sonam di tho saya chiro. Sakcha. Dikwe chaya. Sonam di tho saya di chin so. Oh, tene. Nyamsha ge nega ta chetu ge nega. Choye nega kadu ina ko. Sonam da shigi tho niga sibach ko res. Disi so so. Na choye ne nyambar sha tongba nyule nyambar sha be kapsu ina. Simje tamje tonga de trendu ge nyingji sawa che. Ane te chedu sanje ge koban tobar cha sam. Te chedu tongba ni komgu sam chanju sem ko dwa. Chetu ge nega su kesa ngo ya ta. Oh, tene. Chedu ya chanju sem de simje tamje trendu ngo ko dwa. Tene chora ta ngushin ju sungba kapsu sonam da shigi cho niga.
So as for what we had gone over in the text last time, we were talking about the way in which one engages in various good deeds in the 7-limb prayer and so forth in order to purify our negativities and accumulate merit. So here we need to have a kind of union of method and wisdom, in that even in the periods of meditative equipoise, as well as in those periods of subsequent attainment, at all times, these should be conjoined together. So when one is in the kind of meditative equipoise, directly realizing emptiness, that is, it has as its root the kind of compassion that leads to an attitude of bodhichitta, such that during that time of meditating on emptiness, one has these two conjoined. And in periods of subsequent attainment, one dedicates all of the roots of one's virtue toward great enlightenment. And so sort of in the preliminary to things, in the actual sort of practice here being meditative stabilization, and then in the subsequent periods or following after, one should have these two conjoined together.
Oh yeah, then Sony, son of the she Sony Jebalaten, Namgun Chondangi Tongbani Togure Sonsoa, Number Quindy Chodan, then be Tongbani Tog with Shirapti. Don't that Tongbani Tog with Shirapti? Tub Simjet Tonga the Trendu Sewaki, Shichen, and it's Chanju Semda. They couldn't allow Chimba children serve some della so apart to Chimba Trugi, Simbe Kone, and it Tongbani Congo, still come to Namgun Chondangi Tongbani Sedwa. Don't you talk about shit, number could you short on them, Tongbani's, number could you short on them, Chanju Sem Jawa, Niji, Chimba children serve soba, or Tezu Kanga, Tabi Chadik Simbe Kone, Tongbani talk with Shirap Telia, Chondangi Tongbani is. Number could you short on them, Carson, Chimba and Damba, children and Damba, Saba and Damba, Niji and Damba, Chanju Sembe Simbe Kone, Tongbani Congo, Songua, yeah.
So here, then we had talked about how, again, in the periods of meditative stabilization, as well as the kind of periods of subsequent attainment, these two need to be conjoined. So in the text last time, we had been talking about actualizing the emptiness that possesses all the best of all qualities. And so here, what this is referring to is a kind of realization of emptiness that is held by this attitude of bodhicitta, that is backed by the kind of love love and compassion, as well as the practice of the six perfections in those periods of subsequent attainment, that is what one allows one to, as it says here, actualize the emptiness that possesses the best of all qualities. So here, this is done through the conjoining of wisdom and method.
Oh yeah. And that tablet tembe koba kares nerwa. Tongbani to be shirap kanjang kom gures. Tanda hashala soba to tende the yordo. Tongbani mato shenda chimba chumla soba koma resega. Or timarese. And they think of this. Take koba karesana. Sanje to Sanje Shingam to Gurua. Nepusum soba tabu shingam to Gurua. And it go pusum soba, lupusum soba, chansam was some pitches and steps to table soba, some sangbe young soba to do Gurua. And a corpusum soba, showing a corpusum soba, soba to the Togurdo. Or take the Tezukanga to the tablet and Togura. Sanje Togi and then, she's a Tamji Kembata, Langdurki net, Tamji Kembata, your mother says it was 7 Don't when you talk with shit of the Chihuahua, the tub. Janju was simply Simbecone, don't when you come now. In me never young days, chair. No, no more than Shizet when you got assembly and your mother Shizet when you got that. She sent it in a long door, you Shizet Tamji can't be shot. Shit up the Tuguara, tub you Simbecone, shit up the Tugua. That Gui you and Danta, Songa you and Danta, Shing Person Soba, Tagwe Shingam, Lungu, call Person Soba, Tagwe Shingam Soba, Mambu to your door. Tezokanga de. Tub Jimba shooting Saba, some day so like Mambo, Mambo, Sambucha, Mambo, Sabalatin, anything to good as. Oh, the tablet temper and equabody, Sanje Shingam, the nail long to push so what is to be shooting, the good as. Oh, tablet tango manner, and then nail long to push so what you can't attend to what as. Do your marwa, or take you tell it to good as long down Rigbuggy. Yeah.
So then here, addressing the question of what is the purpose of engaging in the method side of the path? Why do we need to have that? So there are those like Hashang and others who would say that one only needs the kind of wisdom side, cultivating that wisdom, realizing emptiness, or even just this mind settled on nothingness. But here, the response to that comes in the text where it explains that when we attain Buddhahood, along with a kind of pure realm within which one abides, and the kind of pure body of a Buddha with all of the 32 major marks and the 80 minor signs, the kind of qualities of speech of a Buddha and so forth. These qualities are developed through the accumulation of the practice of method over many lifetimes. So when we talk about the kind of qualities of a Buddha's mind, knowing all of the modes and varieties of phenomena, knowing without any kind of deception the points to be adopted and abandoned, these qualities are primarily actualized through the practice of wisdom, through the wisdom side. So when we refer to that omniscient wisdom of a Buddha, wherein they have eliminated all of the afflictive obscurations as well as the obscurations to omniscience, that quality of mind has as its primary cause the meditation on emptiness. But the kind of pure realms or pure fields, the pure bodies of a Buddha, the pure retinue, is gained through the development over many lifetimes of the practice of the method side of generosity and so forth. So otherwise we could ask, well, what would be the cause of that kind of excellent body and excellent abode and so forth? Because one couldn't posit a proper kind of cause. So it's necessary then to have the practice of the method side in order to attain that.
Oh yeah, oh, tablet Mongolia don't cook this. That casualty. Long Sanje long transfer, long Dalia, shit up then and do the top ganga call Mares, Siguars, Millum Bukaji in the city Mares, tablet and good as or what. This Sanje from then there, we change to Simba Negamnaya. Kashiwaranasi, Kashis, you are no Warnas, Kashis, Cable, Curace, and it Tatendege, Puru, Angul, Sigara, Angul Sagan, but any cable shut, how you any angle because a poor intelligence 타들 진에 포동이 쏟아와 쳐봐라. 샹야 산제게 개바 망볼이야. 전주신 베네가블라 개바 망볼이야. 심제 동에다 제야다. 대화 토비에 던달에 진바다 추dim다 서바다 삼전달 서바 셴뱅게 자월랍 선부 망보 좀 버와. 개바 망볼이야. 전주신 배 잠바 캐랑게 텐도 망보 좀 여러와. 대서 강가 시럽 채워도 배서와. 너라도 배서. 수dim 채워서 네 시럽 채워도 배서. 시럽 머신 배서 논주 친지로 시럽 도 배서 거도. 어디 말했어 송거도 어떤데 거스 돌에 롱장에 송송아 야.
So here, this is established both through kind of logic, reasoning, as well as through scripture. So here, citing scripture, it says that we need to extensively engage in the kind of method side of the path, as it explains here in the sutra, that was the summary of the extensive classification of all phenomena. It gives this example of the king Kashi, who was a bodhisattva, who offered his own flesh to a hawk in order to save the life of a pigeon. And that kind of practice, the Buddha asks Maitreya, is that mistaken somehow for him to have done that? And here it's explaining that these practices of the method side are not mistaken, but rather this is something that bodhisattvas need to make effort at for many, many eons, lifetime after lifetime, in order to be able to achieve the state of Buddhahood. So here, like that example of the king of Kashi who offered his own flesh, this isn't mistaken in any way. It's not detracting from his practice of emptiness, but rather is something that needs to be practiced for many eons.
Oh yeah. The that tapsi tapdan shirab nigal lobala tenis ura tapsi sundri ki chele teni yonya de sunga tapsi sundri kombayina ete chele ten kari ungurasena ane sanje chanju simba namje lamdrube tawa rawa nyende je lamdrube tawa chirube lam nyende da range ta tekwa membe lamdrube tawa ni chirube lamdrube tawa la soba tezo ta shenre ese a kandere sne chiruba tozo ke ta mebe tombani komgu yo mardo ma gomba che ani komsheji kemne tingji tembu chan tumne siji paton drone siji di tarba insam tebado ya to lamdrube yo do o teko yamole tartu mardo ko tombani matosa janju sambanam tele shenre tombani togbe shirabki ani koye tongele tantu tarba che togu yo do o tisonja chiribe lamtujule shenre esa nyera dozoge rachi butarba towe chedu chungu yora rachi butarba towe chedu chungu yora tongbani togbe shirab kyangyan komgir mado simje tamje tunga de trendu ji tsawaning ji chembo teku ne lambe chanju gisem tele teni chimba chudumla soba tezole chomba de yungu yomardo tabdi leandu yordo nyandi da rangi do tabdi 닝지 첨보다 장주 셈라 소바 대신배니 진소 파르도 첨보 둘라 첨보라 소바 뜨주가 말도 어디 이제자고 타르바 톱그레데 택반 멤버도 라치부 타르바 톱그레데 아니디 탐제 김배 고반 토고 말도 영모데 방제 소치 요라 라 영모 반 라치부 코에 동엘레 타르바 삼디 연구 요라 등메다 좀 말이야 tele shendu chanju sembage ranche bun yoga tarba tomni tele neba shibiyo mare shitib di panje so che yore shengi ten tuwelia shitib di panje so che yordo so ko tambu yomba yoba ran ko dongele tagu do samje ko dongen tane trachum bache che neba kabu shibiyo mare neba shibiyo mare ti ne karesine shibe tal ne rowa ranche bu yomo pano ko dongele tawe tarbal ne shitale ne rowa 어디 소자 전주 semba게 시달라 내가 말에 시다 텔레 셴도 탑기 sembe 코냐니 산제기 고바 토발 소바 텐데제도 아티데 년데다 라게 택반면뱅이 라게 람투주다 치르베 람투주레 셴도레도 따와 탑기 시롱이가 시럽이 차네 요모세지세라 탑기 차네 시럽디 탑기 sembe 차네 산제 고바 톱시 미네베 양대 톱시 시베 탈라에 미네 시바에 빵바시비와레 양엘은 데바라 치부 요바 Koi Dungele Tarut never tell him about your mother. Or shitty by a soldier. Or you teach you on Mount Duchess.
So then the result, if one develops this kind of union of method and wisdom, it will result in Buddhahood. And this then is sort of superior to, distinct from the paths of non-Buddhists or the paths of those hearers and solitary realizers, both from the side of wisdom in terms of those non-Buddhists, and as well as from the side of method in terms of both of those categories. So if it were non-Buddhists, outsiders, are able to develop really strong meditative concentration. They have the ability to, say, gain a rebirth all the way up to the peak of samsara. But because they are lacking this wisdom realizing emptiness, there's no way to attain any kind of liberation from samsara. They are just getting to that sort of peak point within samsara. And so bodhisattvas, as opposed to that, are able to attain the state which is this non-abiding nirvana, in which one is not abiding either in the extreme of samsara, like those sort of non-Buddhists, or in the extreme of peace, in the peace of nirvana, like hearers and solitary realizers, where they have developed wisdom, but don't have the sort of great compassion or bodhichitta, those kinds of elements that lead them to engage in the practice of the method side. So their main effort is at eliminating their own afflictive obscurations. They aren't engaged in the practice of the six perfections and so forth, with this kind of goal of liberating not just themselves, but being in a position to be of maximum benefit to other sentient beings. So here, hearers are only getting rid of their own afflictions. That's their main interest. Whereas bodhisattvas are focused on their obscurations to omniscience, these knowledge obscurations, because that's what is the sort of main obstacle to their being able to benefit others. So they don't have this desire to quickly gain their own liberation. They don't want to abide in that extreme of peace, in that extreme of nirvana, and nor do they want to still be in the throes of samsara. So they're striving for this state which is a non-abiding nirvana. They're making effort at both method and wisdom, looking to remove their own afflictive obscurations as well as those obscurations of knowledge in order to be able to benefit others. So they don't have this kind of desire like hearers to quickly attain their own peace, and nor are they still within the kind of trappings of samsara because of the wisdom that they have developed.
Oh yeah. Oh, the Trinity Tapsi Nigala Turkobe, Sanjay Long Tangadua. Oh, Kandish Tangadosana. Shirab dan Treve Tabdi Chimades. Tabdan Treve Shirab de Chimades Songua. Shirab Tongbani Togway, Shirab Shiorwa. All the Tab Niji Chimboda Chanjuk Sembla Sobat and Regi Masimbaina, Deda Travaina, and it's Chimades. Tony Dobe Shirab de Niji Chimboda Chanjuk Sembla Sobat Tabdi Sinsona, Tarbades. Tarnashi. Niji Chamboda Chanjuk Sembla Sobatezo, Shirab Dana, Chawades. Niji Chamboda Chanjuk Sembla Soba Tapsang Buchade, and it only talk with Shirab Dana, Shirab Yamdon Dana, and it Tarbades. Oh, this one's one thing do Karusun Gursina. Don't you talk with Shirab Dan Mavase, Tapjan Komna, and it Tonlam Toto Marwa, Tombanusum to Tonlam Toto Mar, Society Ochete would have done. Oh, the Zanko, Koala Nachitana, Sibetala Long to Gora, Sibetala Long was it Yora. Oh, teacher. That any? Tap the Tombani to be sure of the Simbayena, and it tab you ever Tombani to be sure of the Sena, and the Tarba Rese, and the Minevan young de Tovieta, Yambo Pa, Shitty Pa Yatarsi, but you are to. What are Nashi? Teaching to tap the Zoya, Shirab dan Jana, Chuares, Shirab dan Dana, Tarvares. That and that Carson Goresana. Don't you talk about Shirab Mado Tabmana, young Ellie David Talalong to Roa, Ranchibu, Koala Tarve Tarva, Tengmaki Chos along the Gora. Teaching what it is a Gora. Tap the Yana, Tilalongu Amade, Tarvares on Goa. That don't you talk about Shirab Mavashe. Tabjan Yava Yana, koale tarbe tonglam da to ya top tok ma to nyamo bada shije tebe se tok marwa o tindu ti chwares ti du tapsi ni ga da demba chwares o ti she so ya ti di wo ani dire.
So then, quoting scripture from the Buddha, in order to support the necessity of having a combination, a union of method and wisdom. So here it says, what is bondage for bodhisattvas and what is liberation? So upholding a life in cyclic existence devoid of skillful means is bondage for bodhisattvas. So here, anything that is not held with compassion, great compassion, and this attitude of bodhicitta is bondage. So if they are within cyclic existence, devoid of those kinds of qualities of developing a great compassion and bodhicitta, then that is seen as being like bondage. But to lead a life in cyclic existence with skillful means is liberation. And then upholding a life in cyclic existence devoid of wisdom is bondage for bodhisattvas. So here, if one is to only then try to practice the method side and not develop the wisdom side of this, that too would be bondage, because without wisdom, one is unable to attain the path of seeing and become a superior being. And progress along those various paths to Buddhahood, one will remain as an ordinary being. And so therefore will fall into the extreme of samsara, into the extreme of cyclic existence. So here, for bodhisattvas, wisdom which is not conjoined with skillful means too is considered to be bondage, because when one only develops wisdom, you fall into the extreme of peace, of no longer having any sort of regard for working for the benefit of other sentient beings. So here, without the kind of wisdom realizing emptiness, a bodhisattva is unable to become an Arya being or become a superior being and progress through the paths. But without the kind of method side, that is seen as bondage for them too, because one would in turn fall into the extreme of peace, and a bodhisattva doesn't have a desire for that either.
Oh yeah, that on that go. Don't bang it up with syrup to Sungora or Tabgi Masim Bayina. Getting Maggie Tarba Lowes, the Jogban Yoba, near Ranchi Bukoale Tarbe Tarba, Yamo Panje, Ranchi Bukoale Tarbe, Tarba, some Yandel and Nedugora. The Gasuri, Shivetal and Nedudua. Then the Mineben Yandes, Chanju Sembaga Ranchi Bujoba Tarba Tovetilla. Nebalam Babasio Marto, City Pani, Yamaba Pan, Tetanjam to Shetje Tribati Pangura, Landor to Nemaluba Kimbadi, Geshe Yeshe Rantarba Toba to Geshe Yeshe Mother. Shandaga Cheto, Tamjekil Koban Tobgobadi, so you know. The Chanju Sembage, Topchati Minebenyan desora. Siba Koal, Yomopan, Sibale, Minevicha, Yomobaya Pan. Yomoba Zampane. Koale tarwa sa maimba, mishiba momba spani. Landor gene tamje kengo yorno. Shidi be pani. Any garsora. Yangelen debe tala mene, sibe tala meneba. Menebe nyang desvidwa. Yamu janjan joba panje shidi mabana. Any marin yang degi tamadra, yangelen debe tatera. Oh, teni Tony Dobe Shire Mabashana City Panto Marto City Pambala Tony Dobe Shirati and it's Sanju Sembi Simbecone Mishiba Momba Pango Yamomba Paksati Pango Yordo. Oh, Tisonja Carsore. Meneben Yang de Tobala Kexicre Estatunda. Tombani Dobe Shirati Tabi Masina Timeji Rajibu Tarwatova Nashishana. Never young dead Tobala cakes you use, and it's your ass somebody else, or till I'm not doing it. Yeah.
So here, then a bodhisattva doesn't have a kind of interest in a lower nirvana like that of a hearer or a solitary realizer, where they achieve only their own liberation. They don't want to just remove their own afflictions, but also want to remove those obscurations to omniscience, those knowledge obscurations, because the real goal is having that knowledge, the unmistaken, undeceptive knowledge of all of the points to be adopted and abandoned. And so what a Buddha wants is not just a quick removal of their own afflictive obscurations, but rather are trying to get rid of those obscurations to omniscience. So here, for a being like this, to just quickly strive to eliminate their own afflictions is something that would lead them to fall into that extreme of peace, into this extreme where they're just sort of experiencing their own freedom from the various afflictions. And so the kind of desire to quickly be freed of one's own afflictions actually acts as an obstacle to that striving to remove those knowledge obscurations. So again, for a bodhisattva, wisdom without method is seen as bondage, is seen as an obstacle to attaining what they are really striving for. But again, one also needs to have the wisdom side. You can't just have the kind of method of engaging in the various perfections and developing compassion and bodhicitta without that being held with wisdom. So these two need to be conjoined together.
Oh yeah, I do. Oh yeah, tanga de live so de Sravasti de. Oh, de kasore. Oh, de ma. Chanju semba shirab tamla tena ne nyen doji debes tanda tal shonesh. Chanju semba se doa shirab tamla temba ina se tongba ni togbe shirab tamla temba che sangbu cha iji chenbo da chanju semla soba tezo ya kula maji ba che matemba ina sungora mena sungora chanju sembe shirab ta tabla tena ni nyende jindebe tene karina timendo ore nyende jindebe nyangele debar tongwe sikdwa e kengme gi nyandele tongdu dese tabde de tresona tongbo nyen janje to che ta ju sanen ta ta o tabda nyangele debar tongwe se de do se chanju sembe shirap samla tena ne nyende jindebe nyangele debar to koe kewa champang be ranche bu koale tarba sam nyangde samla ne duora te chwa re se ora chwa shin du jurbe se de menebe nyangde to bala ke che chwa so chwa shin du jurde menebe nyangele deba and debe sar menebe nyangele debe tor me jurosa o tode koale to samato mishibe mongbole matune menebe nyangele debe nyangde de top ma de sungwa Kedavana tabdan dreve ne chanju semba nam je chwa shi jo te sonda menebe nyangde tobe ke chi gore tabdan dreve shirb kongna menebe nyangde tobe ke chi go tan dile chwa shi song ba re sungwa o kedavana ya te ji lapsena ta bo chunju chunchena ba shi ta den ro tas ya.
So then picking up in the text where we had left off, is there a little bit of feedback going on here?
Yes, it's happening again.
Feedback going on here?
Yes, it's happening again.
Do you remember?
Ki di ken sabodu karichine.
I think it's coming from Geshe Thabkhe, from Geshe-la's side, maybe Gala Rinpoche, if you could click the meeting to join again, maybe Gala Rinpoche, if you could click the meeting to join again.
This is you conjecture.
No, everything is okay.
Oh, that's true. That do it.
Yeah, it seems tanda kogidu yine samsam ye ki korang yankyar kogidwa. Tanda digres. Okay.
Oh.
it seems to be resolved for the moment, but I guess if it starts again, then maybe.
Yeah, if it starts again, then maybe Galar Rinpoche, if you could leave the meeting and come back, that would be the first move.
Okay. So here, picking up in the text, it says, if a bodhisattva cultivates mere wisdom, he falls into the nirvana desired by hearers. So thus it is like bondage, and he cannot achieve non-abiding nirvana. So here again, if one is to only develop the kind of wisdom side without giving rise in one's continuum to things like great compassion and love and bodhicitta, and not develop that kind of method side within one's own mind, then you're only going to attain this kind of freedom from one's own rebirth. You're not yet freed completely from that sort of lack of knowledge, that delusion, that lack of knowledge. And so that kind of state, which is nirvana for hearers, is considered for bodhisattvas to be like bondage, like liberation. So, sorry, not liberation, like bondage, because such a state, again, is not yet freed from all of those obscurations to omniscience. It is not what a bodhisattva is striving for. So again, wisdom separated from skillful means is bondage for bodhisattvas. It's an obstacle to their obtaining that goal of non-abiding nirvana, a nirvana that neither abides in samsara or the extreme of peace.
Oh yeah. That didn't Teta Vena Sigdwa. Teta Vena Lagbe. Nyemba la metemba shindo Sigdwa. Nam Dramu Shira Yosachilia, Nam Dramu Che Kantine, Lagba Jamna Petramu Yoda. Or Lagbe Nyemba, so Lagba Dramu Capture. Any tie today, Yanga Yube Capilesgura. Tevena Lagbe Nyemba la metemba shindo, ne Casona. Ngemelo se metangura madu timadu tapsishanda ke yomarwa mete bashindo se chanju sembe chinji loge hagba bangbe chere chanju semba ke chinji loge hagba da drive etne yomomba da meshe bomba la soba bangbe chere tabda chebe shirebje tongba ni tembar cha yese tab chanju ke sembi sembe kone ani shireb tongba ni tobe shirebje Tombani tobe shirab de tengu de sigara. Oh, Yandu shindo, Ngosum do mechatis. Oh, Tombani tobe shirab de tengi ware, Yamo ponji, Yambole, Tombani tobe shirab de tengi wares. In the Yandu dan Rangena, she take one member Nashi Shindo, and they call Tombani tobe shirab de so coming Java Java, Rantarva Tobala, Chungma Sigara. Tombani temper chayes. Nyandu shindo ngondo no meja ose. Tongba ni to nyandu shindo yoba ra ni chibu kwale tarwa de ngondo chigma res wara. Ngondo meja ose. Phagwa chwe ben dole chige do ose. Ti khung ta gdwa, long ta gdwa. Dole rigi bun dita de pena mi lala se me yonso chwe bar gurdo ose. Tasuna me melia think it is metro asido. Te metela te dances or te cadere melia pe Zichambuchigra, Kachambuchigra, Zisuchesira, Tongchambuchagra, or me the Yaxura Tasuna, me Madoshan Tepsiomara, or Tela Tidanches, Lamarches, or Tabiaxudera, Chodugubadera, or Lamarcheja, Dinyam do Tage. Metela didn't chase, Metelia, Gashambuchig, and Dele Tapsi Yaxuti in Basam Gear, till you met the Yaboyon and Dalia Lagachigura, Cheja, and Dilla Lagbani Gionso, Swar Chow Yamdo Mesemsos, made the Tachambus Lagbachangamarwa, Lagbachana, Lagbachigrenes, to me Gurdo. The teacher Shenase. Shitele tala luji tunge am ane tabgi yi medewa gurdo hongo nyambechor ane lagwa sigre ane semba mikiwa chagira This was a made a lot of Changmari, teaching Bushrachi Resugara, or Tenashi, the Pechavora. Tation de Chanju Sembaya, Yangele Debe, Sambajan Yasa. Let and Yamobangi Shawan to go to Kwa Court to let Tarvache some Kunguara. Young de top goes and young as the Yamor, Tel and Debe, Tarva top goes some Koya Dunge, Gu, Yamo de Panet, and the Koya Dungele Tarvache goes some. Think the way you're the Yangele Debe Sambacha Yilase. Yangele Deba Musum Doya, Mechidos, Tanda Chanju some kids had with a Joban Young Dead, don't want to check my resura. Ran Trachum Bacha call it on and drink to some tits or chigio mother. Chanju some kids had to, or some jacket turned to really call a net and some jacket turned to it. Yabu do some call never like a music order. Chanju sem majibe kondo, ran let and Yamuba Wanga Shamadu Kuni, Kichila Rameba, Toma Meva and Cortanda, those Corta de Same, Tandu Chigora. In a Chanju sem gets at the Shembe to Vega Cheto, call and never the Server Chigor, call and never, Jobo call it Tarwa, some Tango Mara. Sheche Tribati, Langdor Jene Maluba, La Mongba to said, Shenji Turnabala, Tarshim Bekibuchin Gurko, some Tamja Kimbekova. Kunku say you couldn't keep it in Guru Chago somewhere, but call it Tarwade, Kendrege, Keshambuchi or Marwa. Teche Chirshina, Shidele Taja, Chanjule Chir, Doba Guru Hongyang, Joba Timaji, Trachum Beson Rudanani, Lana Mebe Chanju, Minebe Yande Tobale, Godu, Chir Doba Guru, Sanjay Kovan Tobala, and Doba Guru Yambe, Chirose. Sheka Java Tabus. What did you learn?
So here then, as it explains, therefore, just as a person chilled by the wind seeks the comfort of fire, so a bodhisattva cultivates the wisdom of emptiness along with skillful means to eliminate the wind of wrong view. So here again, for a bodhisattva, like imagining that someone when they're like in a really cold place and the wind is blowing really hard, again, before we had electricity and everything, you'd be going to a fire to try to warm yourself up. And so here, the bodhisattva is sort of putting himself close to this fire in order to eliminate this cold of the wind of wrong view. But he's not endeavoring, he or she is not endeavoring to actualize this state of peace in the way that hearers do. So again, this is something where a bodhisattva is striving primarily for this kind of state of omniscience, wherein they have eliminated their own afflictions as well as the obscurations to omniscience. And so their main goal is not to get rid of their own afflictions as quickly as possible. They're not trying to just eliminate that and strive for that as quickly as they can, which would be the kind of attitude of a hearer, wanting to gain that liberation as quickly as they possibly can. And so here, then the text cites a sutra, the 10 Qualities Arya Sutra, which says, "O child of a good family, it is like this. For instance, a person who is thoroughly devoted to fire, who respects it and regards it as a guru, will not think, because I respect, honor, and venerate fire, I should hold it in both hands." So here you could have someone, whether they're sort of regarding it as like a guru or a deity, or just appreciating the quality of fire, recognizing how important it is and being able to warm us up when we're cold and do other functions. Even if someone has a great deal of appreciation and respect for fire, they're not going to sort of demonstrate their respect or their appreciation for fire by picking it up in both hands. They're going to, if they did that, they would burn themselves and cause a great deal of pain. It says here in the quotation, this is because he realizes that to do so, to take a fire in both hands, would give him physical pain and mental discomfort. And so here, similarly, a bodhisattva is also aware of nirvana, but does not but also does not try to actualize it. This is because he realizes that by doing so, he would be turning away from full awakening. So here, again, like one can have a respect for fire, a kind of admiration for it, and still recognize that if you are to pick it up in both hands, you're going to burn yourself and then cause mental anguish from that. So for bodhisattvas, although they desire to have everyone be freed from this kind of suffering of samsara, they don't see their own liberation, their own freedom from the sufferings of samsara driven by karma and the inflictions as something that they're trying to actualize, but rather they are happy to stay within samsara because that is where they are able to benefit and to help sentient beings. They have the kind of endurance, forbearance, or patience to put up with whatever may occur because they have this sense of working for the welfare of others. And so the real thing that they are striving for is getting to that state of omniscience, that state in which they have eliminated all faults and developed all good qualities to their highest. So they're not really even holding their own liberation as a goal or something that is to be desired, but the primary aim is gaining that state in which one is able to benefit others. And even remaining in samsara, whatever that may bring, is something that is joyfully done for the sake of others.
Oh yeah. The top some bashi, tennis, top bashi. The one you chimboda, Chaju, Semla Soba, Samba Sambu Chada, Chimbala Soba, Tezum Bashi, Konal Tennis, top some bashi, Tena Yang, Chanju Semba, Sosu Sale Mendavas. Tongban you musum to Totuma, Tongban to Mena. The Sosu Gure there, Sosu Gure Sona. Yomogi Shawado Jurgiordo. Sosu Yomo, Sosu Semgi Shawado Jur, Sem Yomogi Shawado Jurne, Sosu Loam Beba Karsode, Chagdangi Shawado Jurdenge, Sosu Dule Changi, other Sosu Givi Salem Mandeba Sonza, and Nico Chimade Sungura. Sosu Givi Salem Mendave Shindu, Chimba Konar Jurose. The Nico Kode Letter Yomogi Shawado Jurne. Kwa Samba Sambucha Mato Nyamu, Nyambo, Tonbanito, Man, Yamu, Dingman, Shitty, oh, teach you Lamna, Tadavana, oh, that is it. Then Dima, do to a Tatonda tuition, Tadavana, Shirab dan Chebe, Top Temper Chate, Shirab dan Chebe, Top Temper, Top dan Chebe, Shirab, Tapsi Sung did the Tanku, or Tisung did Tonda Sutama Shag. Tapsi Nika Sung to de will say, Tonda Tune Sungudua. Davana Shirab dan Chebe, Top Temper Chate, all the tip of the Chilamna.
So here, if he or she, a bodhisattva, or relies merely on skillful means, the bodhisattva will not transcend the ordinary level, and thus there will be only bondage. So here, if a bodhisattva, no matter what they are trying to accomplish in terms of the sort of good thoughts side of the path, having the method side, no matter how much they engage in that, if they don't have the kind of wisdom realizing emptiness, no matter what good intention or positive thoughts towards others they have, there will only be bondage because it is necessary to have that wisdom realizing emptiness in order to get out of samsara. So here it says, therefore, he cultivates skillful means along with wisdom. And so this is really basically a kind of summary of the necessity of having a union of method and wisdom. It is the case that only one, like only engaging in method, will not lead to liberation because one is not developing the kind of wisdom side that acts as an antidote to samsara. And if one only cultivates emptiness or that wisdom, then one can't achieve this state of omniscience. So here, a bodhisattva sees anything but the kind of union of method and wisdom as bondage. And this is the sort of summary of that here.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Oh, yeah, come on. Oh, yeah, the Tyrus Gudua, Tati, Tanda Teta Mandel in the Sungudua. The Daranga, also sing bed dose in dose, two in a telangada, or Tendegi, Jabatan, mention that and Regi Simbaina could do the pa, Mishiva, Shiva Chetu Mado. The Daranga, also sing bed dose in dose, Sanju Sembanam Junior Mumbaya. 시럽지 용수 선배 또지 검나 뒤치를 주나서 동반이 또be 시럽지 선배이나 녀모도 좀에만한 시수 전부도 우요 말에 녀모도 좀 공가시 파 트로스 줄투고요 마도 녀모기 샤마도 줄투고요 말에 전주 선배남지 녀모 뭐야 시럽지 용수 선배 또지 검나세 뒤치를 주나서 랑신기 응원바르 토벤 레부체 짐발라 소바 랑신기 고 응원바르 토레 짐발 추르 소바 삼달라 소바 토르와 지단 경기 차마로 연대로와 녀모스리 지단 경기 차레데스요라 근데 줄고요나 랑신기는 응원바르 토와 계획초 상배차도서 아니 동반이 또베 시럽지세나 텔레자니야 뒤신교와 다시 메세 로 시럽이요나 바로도 침반 현다도 로나시에서 동반이 또베 시럽데 롱티 롱바 팅겐기 미미여바나 신이소도 산제지 살이야 격보야 치토 그래서 침바 타르심바 침바 파르 침바 스베 파르 침바 준지 파르도 봐 유로 샤토 그래서 거도 네 거래서 랑시게 응원바르 토베 제부체 침발라 소바 가인바 따묘자 찍고데 파바군조 sekbale chiketo tan do kontrangwa so data de penanga da menje yonso sembe to gene chewar semene so se to sebe ina ko shi to kumare sa nga da men sebe ina ro to shi ge men da ne nga te de wa ge de shen do chanju semba nam je nyomon ba shirab je yonso sembe ja se dan da nyomo pa yo mare ina tongba ni to be shirab ke shen de yude se tongba ni to be shirab kyule yude Lobar to ache mene so se o te wange ne ngeson la so batendelia lobar to ache to kumare sungora che mene so she ka che dos kar se ningji da walam bi wange ko ke wa jing ge wara rang le rawa me ba nyomo shawa tu chun me ba se ningji da walam wange chanju sem ba ga ko ke wa so sem be to che ba ne ba so se tende chen ke si or no o ti sungu sa do she ka che do se 대다외나 강계셔 장주 semba 탑지 톱지 코아 멘도로와 대셔르세 대다외나 강계셔 장주 semba 안에 탑지 톱지 코아 멘도로와 탑 닝지 싸와시 장주 semba 셴벤 투베 던달이야 셴게 던도 코아 코네 셴도 톱톱바 랍셈부 톱톱고네 텔이야 멘데바 용고요 말에 가신 또신도 쇼고요 하르노 대다외나 강계셔 장주 semba 탑지 톱지에세 장바다니지 장주 semla 소바 셴벤 톱디고 삼르 톱지 코아 멘도로와 대셔 코아 조금 빠네 팅메 트라춤바나시 근데 냥엘은 데베 탈 송고요 말에 송거라 대셔 냥엘은 데베 냥엘은 다와야 멜롱오스 냥엘은 데베 탈 송고 말에서
So here, then picking up in the text, it says, by the power of wisdom, bodhisattvas can transform even the afflictions into nectar, like poison under a tantric spell. So here, when a bodhisattva engages in this practice of wisdom and method conjoined together, then it's like being able to transform our afflictions into some kind of nectar, in the way that if a poison is, say, mixed with another medicine, or if it's someone says the right sort of spell, it's able to be rendered harmless. And so here, when bodhisattvas have both this kind of great compassion and bodhichitta, as well as the wisdom realizing emptiness, the afflictions no longer have the same kind of power to overpower us. If you have wisdom, again, wisdom is described as being like the guide for a practice, all of our other practices of generosity and so forth. So the other 5 perfections, generosity and so forth, are without wisdom, like blind people kind of wandering around without direction. When we have the wisdom realizing emptiness, this is like a guide for all of the perfections that we engage in. And so here it explains that when a bodhisattva has this kind of attitude, there is no need to express the goodness of generosity and so forth, which leads naturally to elevated states of existence. And so again, because that's not what bodhisattvas are striving for, it's sort of like a side product of what will happen. So here then, quoting a sutra, it says, the heap of jewels Arya Sutra states, Kaishyapa, it is like this. Due to the power of Tantra and medicine, a poison may not cause death. Similarly, since the afflictions of bodhisattvas are under the power of wisdom, they cannot cause them downfalls. Therefore, due to the power of skillful means, bodhisattvas do not abandon cyclic existence. They do not fall into nirvana. And so here, due to the power of wisdom, they eliminate all objects misconceived as truly existent, and therefore they do not fall in cyclic existence. So here again, a bodhisattva is, because of having developed this kind of wisdom, realizing emptiness, a bodhisattva is able to reduce their afflictive emotions and no longer take the kind of uncontrolled rebirth due to the power of karma and the afflictions, but rather can attain a state where they take rebirth due to the power of prayer, due to the power of their aspiration and intentions. And so for such a bodhisattva, they joyfully enter into the fray of samsara. They don't feel this strong desire to get out of it as quickly as possible, because they recognize being in samsara is the way to benefit other sentient beings. So again, due to the power of skillful means, bodhisattvas do not abandon cyclic existence, because their development of the wisdom realizing emptiness is held with great compassion and bodhicitta. They don't fall into that extreme of nirvana, but due to the power of their wisdom, they don't fall into the extreme of samsara, of grasping at objects as truly existent and then falling into that kind of state.
Oh yeah. Oh, this one's that tabjit of Jirwa. And it Janju Simba Koya Janju Simba Yangele Debe Tala Tungumare, this one. Oh, the Davena Kangish Janju Simba tabjit of Jesus. Jambada Niji Janju Simba Soba Tobji. And then Kwa Mendoro teacher, Kwa Joban Joba Kwa Panchi Yara Trashumba Nation Jurgumares. This was a Yangele Debe Tala Lungumares. 다 관계치 시럽 기톱기서 동반이 똑배 시럽이 요래 탑장 주고 심여바 마셔 동반이 똑배 시럽 기톱기 우리 mikba thada pwa teacher tembar trube mikba yu do la ya rangune rawadu trube yu jingune yu do thonga ta tarab shi yu do mo da shine tarab shine rangune yu do mo thonne ne kondu ke yorba o dezo me ba shagres gange shire shirab ki to ki tongban to be shirab ki to ki mikba thada pwa teacher yu rangune yu do ta me la soba mikba de Pangi yores, singing meba tog, or meba singing or temperature, but no do it. This was a call at Tongmares. Or Tivena, Minebe, Yangele, and Debarian, Sajani Tobotin, Siba, Coin Gobapani, Yangele, Debetale, Longumare, and the young lad and Yomo Beshamadu, call a cortebe, call a negamares, Sibadai. Shive Tanigala Minebe, Yangendele Toba Togres at Andaridua. Tivena Minebe Devaria, Sajeni Tobose, Sisi Tala Minebe, Yangde Tobe Cone, Sanjay Comango to Chigres. Tivena, Pava Namba, Zole Chance, or Tiba de Chilona, and the long demand of Sandra. It won't us or to done Dichilana. Zolajan Shirab Gidi, Shirab Gishebe, Yamumba, Tamja Yonso, Doro, Stintigua, Tombani Tobe, Shirab Tobin Yamo, the Bachur, Narim Sebachi, Tarvatova, Yurgora. Tabi Shebe, Nesimja Yonso, Medon Rose. Tab Chanju, Samdani, Simboyoba, Simjan Gitanchi at its own much of the Shane, Ranjova Tarvatoya, Telendumares, and Golam Telendumares. Tabi Shebe, Nesimja. Tamje Yonso Medongo, Shekache dose. Shindu Papa Komba Nepandra Kongre Lungje Tangdua. Oh, dear Chibangi, Simjangi Tola Shindu, Mechobada, Chanju Samba, Simjangi Tola Shindu Mechobacha, Ranchi Boko Dongale Tarwa, Gaban Donget and Ray Cholan Dugma, Resungora, Simjangi Tola Shindu Mechobada. Simjangi Chanju Samba, Simjangi Tola Shindu Mechobayina, anything major Lamble Loyangayora. And Duchi Number and Duchawa, Tamjela, Duchi Number Duchawa, Shangi Tandura. Shangi Tando Legend Duchila Soba, Tashan Banki Chawa Chimba, Chutan Soba, Samdela Soba, Lega Mambo, Chawa Mambo, Yorno, and Duchi Umbara, Duchewa, Tamjala Shindu Mechokban, Tatunda, Janju Samba, Shangi Tonla, Samlu Mabada, Shangi Ton to Vega Cheto, Umbar Mechokba, Shandung Cheto, Chimba Chutan Soba, Mechokba, Tetula Mechumba, Shindu Mechokba. Teacher Shindu and the Mezumba. Mezumba Lana Baba Yanda Botobe, Chanju to Meluma Dendo, or this Sanjake, Sanjagres, Chanju somebody. Maubana Sanjagres, Sanya Kovan to be killing Douglas a long tank Massungura. Tapsiniga and Damasco. The Davana Sanja near Tobara. Debe, Shirab the Tamiga Tempersha also. Sanja Kovan Tom de Guyana. Tombani Tobe Shirab Janjang Komna Digmare, Tap Janja Komna Digmare, Tapsiniga, Sondu Deva Combe Corane, Sanjay Koma Togure Sungua. Yatiba the Chilamna.
So here again, it says in this quotation from first this Heap of Arya Jewels Sutra, that therefore, due to the power of skillful means, bodhisattvas do not abandon cyclic existence. They do not fall into nirvana. And so they have this kind of compassion for other sentient beings that causes them not to just strive for their own liberation and fall into that extreme of nirvana. And due to the power of wisdom, they eliminate all objects misconceived as truly existent, and therefore they do not fall into cyclic existence. And so here, because bodhisattvas have the wisdom realizing emptiness, realizing the lack of true existence of phenomena, when they say see a pleasant object, they're not going to hold that as being really truly existent and have that give rise to attachment. Or when they see an object that is unpleasant to them, they're not going to hold that as really truly existent as unpleasant. They recognize that things do not exist as they appear, and in this way they don't fall into cyclic existence. They aren't sort of samsara because they're not propelled by that kind of uncontrolled rebirth and grasping at things as being truly existent. So thus they attain the non-abiding nirvana of Buddhahood alone. And this is a nirvana, again, where one is not abiding in either extreme. One doesn't have this thought of like, oh, I want my own liberation as quickly as possible. One has this sense of wanting to be able to be of maximum benefit to others. And thus, the elimination of just one's own afflictions is not sufficient, but rather one needs to have both wisdom and method. So here, a similar sentiment is expressed in the Space Treasure Arya Sutra, where it also says, because of the knowledge of wisdom, bodhisattvas eliminate all afflictions, and due to their knowledge of skillful means, they do not abandon sentient beings. So it is because of their kind of love and compassion towards sentient beings that they don't strive to quickly attain their own elimination of the various afflictions, but they are also not of samsara because they are eliminating their afflictions through that development of wisdom. And the Unraveling the True Intention Arya Sutra also says, I have not taught that someone who is not concerned for the welfare of sentient beings and who is not inclined to realize the nature of all composite phenomena will achieve unsurpassable and perfectly accomplished Buddhahood. So here, just sort of getting around all of those negatives, it says then that those who are not concerned with the welfare of sentient beings, so if one doesn't have this method side, one cannot attain the state of Buddhahood. So this attitude of working for the benefit of others, again, is what keeps a bodhisattva from falling into some kind of extreme of peace, of their own liberation from samsara. And it is too their a development of wisdom, again, where it says here is not inclined to realize the nature of all composite phenomena. It's referring to their not having some kind of wisdom, this wisdom realizing the nature of phenomena. He said that they will not achieve if they don't have those, are not able to achieve unsurpassable and perfectly accomplished Buddhahood. So basically, those interested in Buddhahood must cultivate both wisdom and skillful means. One can't achieve this with just wisdom or with just skillful means.
Oh yeah. That did a tell and jigdale debas to the timber. She had the temporary. Tell and jigdan tell Jigde len debe so dirida. Jigde len debe tongba yingu sumdu togbe pagbe nyamsha yishira soba tindre nekab na sungura. Yalan jigde len debe shira kombe nekab samse. Jigde len debe shira tongba yingu sumdu togbe ishi komba ya nyamsha ishi nekab so sungura. Sam shindu nyambar shakbe. Shindu nyambar shakbe nekab na sungura. Chimba la soba la temba minjundu singya so ore pagbe nyamsha shige negab so chimba da chutim da chanju sem da nyingji chimbola soba yontogma tongba ni kanjang ni nyamba sha de duza tezu yontogbi yo mare tedu tabdi songdu de ngosu tabdi ngosu yo mare songora negab na chimba la soba la temba minjundu singya sa tabdi ngosu yo mare shirab kanjang ma do Chanju semda Jichamboda Simba Chutim Soto Yungumato Titu, Yamsha is Tomba Yanjan Yambasha de Ora, or Menjundu Singas, Mercio Mares Tabdi. Tele Chorota, Te Chelechua, Yamshala Manjube Kongi, Chore Negapso, Nijimbe Kuneland, Sanji Koban Toba de Teche to Tomba Yambasha, some Tabdi Ungura, Tabdi Kuneland Yambasha de Sungura. Te chele chung shirab se cheto nyamsale ya tang sa sona cheto di negab so ra nyambar shakbe chele chung negab so shirab kan chung wa te che tabla temba ni chung wa te che o ta tongba ni nyambar sha chate rangone trebe tong shen do ya cheto di negab so yin ramenda to rangone trebe nangi or do rangone trebe tong shen do ya rangone trebe nangi do samche tongba ni tokbe shirab yong or do ane rangune mena cheto ginega so kumata bose kuma kange talang tadalang bu truba tese ko trungen kuma kange tadalang bu me bada ha ko yora ina ko korang tresha de ya tadalang bu yimba tabu nang yorde ina shimba yongu omardo o tina shi tongba ni tokbe shirab ta ane kuma chamdu semje gi tenche bala soba o tindre ya tabsi ni ga yongu ore songara Shirab Kanyan Junga Tese, Tabla Temba Junga Nite, Tatunda, Joratan Juki Kapsu, Tapsi Nika Yon Chogres, Sundo. Yamsha Kapsu, Mosu, and Tabdi Yomares, Tisundo. Tapsi Sunditilla Negab Kaga Yawa Yores. Teacher Shirab da Tabni Chigjar Jugose, Ode. Yamsha da Negapsu, Tapsi Nika, Mosu, Tabdi Mosu Yomare. Joratan Jug Negapso, Chigjato Yamdo Yore, Sungara, Yukos. Shayan Chanjus Namdi Shirab da Tab Sundin Dreve Jugba Lamni Day in Dessa. Shayan Rabas Chanjus and Banamdi Tapsi Nibudu Sundu Jugba Lam Shekdwa Lamni Day in Day. Simja Tamjala Tawe Ninji, Chimbe Yonso Simbe. Jigdelen debe lam temba da, tadi chowe negab so simje tamje tunge de tendu da teche do ne tunge de travar shibe niba yon sobe sanje koban toba chagi sam teche do nyambar chagi sam ne tabdi kunyalane nyambar chagi ordo pishek do simje tamje la tawe ningji chimbe yon so simbe jigdelen debe lam temba da langbe kabji tu na ya se nyam sha le ya langbe kab che to bin ne gam na ya juma ke shin do chinji logba khone chimba la so ba temba des chinji ma logba so da chinji ma logba khone chimba la so ba la temba da mo che to bin ne gam so ya tongba ni to be shirab da thap ni ga yong gu de se 심지어 동에다 자주 삼배 권에 라니로 근데 짐바듯이 땅이나 심바 동제제다 동아보도 땅위로 서봐 kursu meme to be shiro ji simbe kone ani chimbata gi orno ti thapsi ni ga nyam do yang cho gre song wara temba te phagba ta din do khung dang do phagba lo do me se be temba la chi ge do te la chanju simbe thamni kang re se ngoba druba ni kang she na tham ngoba thamni kang re se shirab ngoba druba ni kang she na shirab drubje shirab de khande chil sigre se na se ro kang ye she na 네 강게 처리 냠바르 샤그바나 심전라 따베 니지 쳔부 미바 라 셈니마 조바테네 타베 노사 와 강게세 냠바르 샤가 동반지리 냠바샤베 공도 저러네 갑송고노 심전라 따베 심제 탐제 동해다 다워르 차 냠리 심전라 삼루 따네 아니 심제 탐제 동해다 트렌드기 니지 쳔부 샤와도 소네 ane tele tunge trewa chiru sanje ji koban toba sha te chiru tongba nyora nyamba sha gi sam te thabgi simbe kone nyamba sha gdwa mikba la sem nyawar jogba tene thabi no so de thabre se wara yinji da chanju simbi kone la ne ane tongba nyora nyamba sha gdwa te chore ne kabji tende kunlu de thabre se tange chere shiwa da rabdu shiwa nyambar jugba tene shirabo se ta kange chere shiwa troba nishi se ra kunzub ye troba ta tembar trobe nawa tena ge troba la soba rabdu shi ne tongba changja rangune trobe tongba changja le nyambar shagbe ne kap tela sugora kange chere shiwa ta rabdu shiwa nyambar jugba tene te shirabo se kap de she shirabde tongba ni ngusum tu togbe shirab la soba o tezul segres she kachir kachawa tabu se o te chi kuna.
So here, then it explains that while you are meditating on transcendental wisdom, or while you are in deep meditative absorption, you cannot engage in skillful means, such as practicing generosity. So here, when we are in the context of meditative equipoise, directly realizing emptiness, or engaging in that kind of meditation on emptiness, one doesn't have manifest sort of bodhicitta. One isn't practicing ethics or generosity or patience at that time. But it is the case that by setting an intention in the sort of preparatory period, using that attitude of the method of the bodhicitta side, then when one engages in that kind of meditation on wisdom, the sort of actual session, one's meditation on emptiness will be held by or infused with that kind of motivation intention that was set prior to the meditation. And then following that kind of meditation, one can make a dedication in accordance with the kind of method side, with a bodhisattva's aspirations to attain enlightenment for the sake of all sentient being. So when one arises from meditative absorption or equipoise on emptiness, one will again have things appear and appearing as though they exist, these various conventionalities appearing as though they exist from their own side. But it is on the meditator to try to hold on to that understanding of emptiness and recognize that things are illusory. These things appear to us, but they are illusion-like, in the way that a magician might conjure up a full scene of like horses and elephants and so forth. But that magician isn't going to be attached to it. He recognizes that these are just illusory appearances. So here, when it comes to a bodhisattva's practice of uniting method and wisdom, it really is important to recognize that one needs to set the kind of intention of bodhicitta in the preparatory period. And at that time, then when one is in the actual session, if this is a direct meditation on emptiness, one doesn't have the sort of manifest method side. But that comes again when one goes into the periods of subsequent attainment, whether that is making a dedication of that virtue that one has accumulated by meditating on emptiness, or then engaging in practices of generosity and ethics and so forth, which are held by that understanding of emptiness that one gained in meditation. So here it says then, but skillful means can be cultivated along with wisdom during the preparatory and post-meditative periods. That is the way to engage in wisdom and skillful means simultaneously. And so moreover, this is the path of bodhisattvas in which they engage in an integrated practice of wisdom and skillful means. This is cultivating the transcendental path that is thoroughly imbued with great compassion, focusing on all sentient beings. And while practicing skillful means, after arising from meditative absorption, you practice generosity and other skillful means without misconception, like a magician. So again, when one is going into this meditative equipoise on emptiness, one is doing so with this kind of intention that is set by bodhicitta, that is determined by that, thinking that, well, I'm meditating on emptiness in order to be able to free all sentient beings from their suffering. This is the purpose or the reason that I am doing this, is in order to become a Buddha with all the good qualities and having removed all faults, such that I am able to fully benefit other sentient beings. And with that kind of intention, then engaging in a meditation on emptiness is an integration of method and wisdom. And so too, when one arises from that kind of meditative equipoise, recognizing that the three spheres of activity, like say in generosity, the giver, the gift, and the recipient, are all not truly existent. That is the way in which that understanding of emptiness carries into the kind of method practices like generosity and so forth. And so this kind of setting that particular sort of intention is the way in which one carries the method side into that meditative equipoise, and holding on to that understanding when arising from that allows one to keep the sort of wisdom side in one's skillful means. So then quoting from the Buddha's teachings, it says the teaching of Akshyamati Sutra says, what is a bodhisattva's skillful means and what wisdom is actualized? The bodhisattva's skillful means are thinking and placing the mind closely on sentient beings with great compassion while in meditative absorption. And engaging in meditative equipoise with peace and extreme peace is also wisdom. So there are many such references to this. So again, engaging in this kind of meditative absorption, which is preceded by an attitude of compassion, and then engaging in this kind of meditative equipoise. And here where it says with peace and extreme peace, this means sort of no appearances of conventionalities and no appearances of true existence. So those have been pacified within the context of that meditation. And so these are some of the many references to the way in which a bodhisattva practices an integrated path of method and wisdom.
Oh yeah, that is tandanga jodi. Lotu mesebe tembe do kung go do. Tamatine do long panche. Tatande de yanja. You do liu le jase. Tapsi sonju le chon go de sete. Do liu. Sanje kai long chan ni tonda shi shi do atenema. Kongtang do longi trupje. Oh yeah. Do liu le ja kachetes. Oh, condition does ne. Shaya Janju Sembanam de Chorwa, Yanda Punese. Janju Sembanam de Tombanila Yambar Shagba Negab de Chore Negab Sura. Chorwa Yanda wa Pudu Chimbatenese, Chotu Jurbatene. Joa Shirabji, Shebe, Wambar. Somebody Mechela, or Jason Jira, Joayanda Pune, and a Tombany Tobe, Sirab, you talk yes. Jorenega, so Tombany Toyo, or Musum to Toyo Marmosachi. Tombany Tobe, Sirab, yes, on the other. Sibe, and a Tambarumber Simbe Suki, Ini ngombar tsombar yang meche la se. Chorwe ne kapsu nyam shala nyambar sha goyo sang chorwe ne kapsu tongpa ni tunji tsuki togi ora te shirab ki togi me tamba truba shenpe tsuki chorwa la tsomba chigi ma re se. Meche la tabji shebe kewa chö tamje chorwa kiwe chö tamje tubar yang tabji shebe chorwe ne kapsu kora chamba da nyingji chanju ki semla sokwa tenre topji ane tabji shebe kewe chö tamje tubar yang chowa da tabji nyingji chambu da chanju ki semla sokwa tenre wange ane shen la chö tamba la sokwa chimba tongwa la sokwa oda kewe chawa la tsomba tenyan dorku ma re sungora tanda chorwe ne kap na ya tenshin da che de sungu ma re tongpa nye tunji suki togi orda teni ya skar sore. Chora ne kapsu tabji shebe chö tamje tubar yang chorwa dansi. Shenpengi chö kewa kari na tu ni nyamsu langri tsungri sungora. Shirabji topji taa meba da. Tongpa nye topwe shirabji topji taa meba da. Taa rangwe taa meba da. Simje meba da rwa. Rangwe simje meba da. So meba da. Ni kar sore. Kansa nebar chebe so se, tachin dikabsu so se de kansa kone digyo re. Chiriba nyamdo chiriba to so se de tal kukdwa. Ngaja jine so da ta ya kaga che yo re. Tandi tal kone digyo re. So ar chebe so meba ya tal kone digyo re. So meba ta se, so bo ta ke mingi namda re chirwa. Su so re ya long chebe. So bo ta meba ta. Kansa me bata jorla se ne tabje shebe simje tamje yonso mimbar imbar testago simje tamje yonso mimbar ya jorwa kayin bade ne jashir jongo se yonso mimbar cheba ya jorwa kayin bade ne she jashir jongo se tanda tabji negapsu, chore negapsu ya tongpa nye tunji suki tokwa ta, ane shenpengi chawa la sokwa tabshi niga sungdi tu yongkure songkudwa. Ane pakpa chu tamje yang daba duben dole ke, tan do shenda pakpa chu tamje yang daba doi kong tangkudwa. Pena gyume kembo kisi, juba tarwa chachi chu, gyuma kengi, Ocean la soba talan do tune ko kare ne chig chig ko talan la soba tu yordo tene ngane te shebe se ta da langbungo ne meba de ko ha ko yordo ina ti tune ko talan do nawa yorde shemba yo mare shenda mi tu den ge do kanga tango ne si do langbungo ne si do samje shemba yordo te tuma ke koran so do tene ngane te shebe se ngone meba de shebe tuba de la chakwa mes ko shenja ke yo mare keba de pemela so kare tuina ko ti tu ma to ngone mes sam kora haku yora sisum tuba dawa ne siba kham song ngo kare na tu sama tuba da dawa re se wa do yu rango ne chi yoban de chi kande chi ina ro ta da nye da yedo me kare na yu kora ngone chu yoba de tong yora ngone chene kora ngone yoba tong de jaga do ne yo mare chi yo ma ba Mainge kasheji choje ne te lega chebe tele soso le pata ne ti chi res pata ge ora mato pige yuchi rangwe ne rangwa chi yo ne te lega chi ge so re thongge orde lega chenge kanga pena namdu de chasha da lega chenge tina lo mashi tongda mambo yo gira te kanga lega re che de ora tanga jo namdu so namla phir che khondonge Koranchi Ramadu Tugarachi Yubes and the Sorgadwa. Yo Marwa Chilo Pakbashi Gore, and Nalo Tange Mi Yore, and then a machine Yore, and Ramada Mambuchi, Mahinga Mambuchora, Kanga Ruru Lega, Chesha, anything, Nambu draw us about Taga Chasha Yuramado, Taka Deres and Dongaji, Mone Sicha came in Dua. Lepa Tawa Samata, what in a Siko, Chedu Negosoti Sam Dankuyora. Kumadabu Chicha said the Chetamja. then the she or the direction to go this. She's a driven down and so bad. Janju Kebe shits. Direction to go there. Doa, the data. None she Jungos or Tiba to Chilamna. Mamma.
So here, then again, establishing this through scripture, it continues with another quotation from the chapter on conquering evil forces, where it also says, the perfect activities of bodhisattvas refer to conscious efforts by the mind of wisdom and the collection of all meritorious dharma by the mind of skillful means. So here, where it is referring to this mind of wisdom, this is initially a kind of realization that is not a direct realization of emptiness, but rather we realize emptiness initially through a kind of generic image, through a mental image. And it is on the basis of that understanding that this mind of wisdom also leads to selflessness, the non-existence of inherently existent sentient beings, and of life, sustenance, and the person. And the mind of skillful means leads to thoroughly ripening all sentient beings. So here now, this is really referring to when a bodhisattva, again, is engaged in this kind of these conscious efforts of the mind of wisdom. And again, this is something that is first done in a kind of indirect way and then leads to a direct realization. This is realized or this is developed with a kind of intention of compassion. So here, this is done for the sake of all sentient beings. That's the kind of motivation here. And that mind of wisdom leads to selflessness, and therefore, and here where it says the selflessness, the non-existence of inherently existent sentient beings of life, sustenance, and the person, here we could maybe understand life as the self. And now some other non-Buddhist schools equate the kind of life force with a self. And that's not what's being connoted here, but just the idea of some kind of a self. And the mind of skillful means then leads to thoroughly ripening sentient beings. So it is the kind of attitude of skillful means that leads one to be able to ripen or benefit all sentient beings. So here, this then turns to another quotation that refers to the kind of way in which a bodhisattva approaches the world in these subsequent periods. So again, there are those times of like engagement, one could say, where one is in meditative equipoise on emptiness, whether that is initially a direct realization. Initially, it's not going to be a direct realization, but then it will be. And then there are those periods of sort of subsequent attainment. And so here it says then, from just as the summary of the extensive classification of all phenomena sutra also states, just as a magician endeavors to free his creation, since he already knows the nature of his creation, he has no attachment to it. So like the way that someone like a magician who has conjured up, say, horses and elephants, or maybe a man or a woman, some kind of show, the rest of the audience might feel some sort of attachment or craving for whatever it is, the sort of attractive woman or an object or something. But the conjurer, the magician, understands that all of what he has conjured lacks any kind of real existence. It's not actually existent in the way that it appears. So here too, similarly, the three worlds are like an illusion, which the wise Buddha discerned. He wore an armor of perseverance for sentient beings. So here again, when it comes to those periods when one is not actually in in meditative equipoise on emptiness, but is in those periods of subsequent attainment, one learns to view all things as like illusions. There isn't something that is inherently or from its own side a friend or an enemy or this or that. No, things aren't determined like from their own side. They don't have that kind of autonomous, non-contingent existence, but they appear to us to have that sort of existence. So we could take like the example of an airplane. When a plane is flying through the sky, it seems very much like that thing is a plane. It's established from its own side. But then we begin to look at all of the kind of various parts that are entailed to make that actually move the way that it does. And we see that there's like people that need to fly the plane and operate various things. And then there's all the machinery within it. And when one begins to break those things down, that kind of sense of autonomous, real, true existence from its own side disappears. And so too with a bodhisattva who is in these periods of subsequent attainment, they have just like discerned in this way that the three worlds are like an illusion. And so they wear the armor of perseverance for sentient beings, meaning that they're willing to joyfully remain in samsara in order to be able to benefit others.
Oh yeah. I chanju semba shirab ta shudwa. Chanju semba namje shirab ta shera.
No.
Sobe shirab ta. Tabji chu kona trube wandu jene se. Tab ni ji sembu sawa sengi chanju sem la soba ra. Jimba chutum la soba. Tabji chu kona trube wandu jene ta tunda tabda shirab niga ko res niga chuku res. Tongba Janja Komni Digmaris, Tisonswa, want to say Ness. Te Chorwa, Koana Nebaya, Imbalasa, or Teta Bune, Chorwa, Tabna Shiram Niga, Kombe Konani, simply turn to Veshido, Janjusim but to Koala Negi or no. Niji the Mulam Guanga Koala never sent to Veshido Nebalia, Sungi or no. Te Choa Koala Nebaya Imbalasa. Samba. Yangele de Bala, never Yano Shekato, Samba Yang de Topsi, Minebe Yangele deba. Ranchi Bunyamusen and Joga Koala Tarwasa Maimba. Roa Simjin to Drubala Gube, Nishija, Tamje, Longer the net, Tamje Musum to Kimba Tarsimbody, Toyacheto, Minebe Yande, Shije Bapani, Yamumba, Zampamba Maimba, Mishiba Mumba Pankani, Minebe Yandela. Never somebody, shake at all, Chanju somebody, Tabda Shiro Niga, a bit of Chambo, only country pay, Shadow Tinde, Koala Nanny, Shandu Trum Tinde Nangi or set on that Redwa. Don't remember by hand about over Chanju. Chimbala Sobala Combashala Tantamba. Or Yangele de Bala never shake at those. There don't buy Nita, Niji Chamber, Nimbuch answer. Don't buy Nita, Niji Chamber, Nimbuch and Lana Mebayanda or Sobe, Chanju to Yonso Mube, Chimbala Sobe, Tab Combarchelas. So I was able to make the tender Niji Chamber, Chanju is Semda. And they sent back to bed, I sent it to Messi. Jimba children serve something so but there's all somebody some good. Oh, Laname Yanda about over Chanjudo, also over. Don't buy Nita, Niji Chamber, Nimbuch, and Lana Yanda about over Chanjudo, you also Move, Chimbala Soba, Tub, Combarcella, Sanji, Cobanto Bechedo, or don't watch it. Chanju Sembaki, Chambani, Chanju, Sem, Chimba children, College, and I call Kesade. Ranamabayan, Simjan Tamjak to Bala Tarchimbe, and you can Sanji Cobanto Bechedo, Yorno. Also, move Chimbola Soba, Tub Combarcellas. Tantambe Chanjuki, Simke Bechedo, Namasendo, Agbara Tutu so, Shineta, Latongi, Shoala, Sonova Combarchades, or Ditalia, Shineta, Latoniga Shesardo, Tombani Tobe, Shineta, Tombani Electribe, Laton La Soba. Oh, Tizulia, don't ambassador. Chimbala Sobala Combachela, Tabichale Combachewode, Tantambe, Janjuke Semkebe, Chirangama Shindo, Dagbara Tutu, Shineda Ladonge Choala, Chiniso Combachades, Tombani Tobe Shineda Ladonge Choala, Chiniso Combachago, the S, and that tablet shiro niga, the Atanko, the S, Tisherdwa. What did you so?
So here, then it continues in the text again, going through how it is necessary to have both wisdom and skillful means. So it says, although he had discerned the nature of sentient beings as thus early on. So that's part of the quotation that came above. And here then we turn to the text that says, it is because of the bodhisattva's practice of wisdom and skillful means that it is said, in their activities, they remain in cyclic existence, but in their thoughts, they abide in nirvana. So here, in terms of their activities, the method side of the path, bodhisattvas cultivate love and compassion, bodhichitta, they engage in the 6 perfections. And in this way, in their activities, they're remaining within cyclic existence to benefit other sentient beings. But in terms of their thoughts, they are in nirvana, as in they have that element of the wisdom realizing emptiness that allows them to be freed from the kind of cycle of existence. And so here, this is again what a bodhisattva is striving for. Is not just their own kind of liberation. It's not being able to get out of samsara for themselves, but instead to be able to gain this kind of state of perfected knowledge, of bringing the kind of knowledge to its completion, such that they know without any kind of exception what is to be adopted and abandoned. That is the way in which one is fully able to benefit others. So here it continues by saying that in this way they become familiar with generosity and other skillful means that are dedicated to unsurpassable and perfectly accomplished full awakening, having the essence of emptiness and great compassion. So here again, this one needs to have both wisdom and develop and increase that wisdom alongside developing and increasing this side of the method side of engaging in things like love and compassion and the 6 perfections. And the root wish for all of this, for the entire endeavor, is to be able to free sentient beings from their suffering. And so for that purpose, that sort of serves as an intention that then when one engages in, whether it's like here, in order to generate the ultimate awakening mind of bodhicitta, as was done earlier, practice serenity, meditation, and insight as much as you can in regular sessions. So here, again, one sets a kind of intention and then develops these qualities in meditative equipoise on emptiness, for example, but also through those practices of generosity and so forth, and dedicates whatever kind of virtues that one has created toward being able to work toward the welfare of sentient beings, towards the state of unsurpassable, perfect, complete enlightenment. And so again, in order to work for the welfare of sentient beings, one needs that kind of method side, as well as the wisdom side. Those two conjoined together allow one to create the causes of being able to most benefit other beings.
Oh yeah. Papa Chui also talk about Dolores. Dodi Kundang Dua. Papa Chui also talk about Dolores. Nega Tamjedo, Simje get to Enchebe, Chanju Semba Nambi Sudwa. Or to the Nega Tamjedo, Chanju Semke Sadu, Simjang to Mato Shanda Language, Meriton Kahacha, whatever Tamje Simje to do your to the Nega Tamjedo. Simjing get to Enchebe, Chanju Semba Nambi, Pay Chigedo Tembatation to Standinama, Chanju send down to the top and Shiram Yellow Combe, Paying to shake Serno, Paying shake Dua. Enchebe, Chanju Semba Nambi, Paying Chigedo Tembatation do Nebe 지게도 쉐바 다 주용스타ben 도나로 송바나 시시고도 템바신도 야와 네베세 야와 네베 잠베 뒤 탐제도 탑라 케바 콤바샤오서 뒤다 가두이나고 탑라 케바 콤바체고레세 탑간데세 콤바체고세 때다 닝지다 탑다 장주게 장주게 심 콤바르체바 대체세 딜라 dōme sāvāra, kēpār dōng yur dēsā. Dīla wā dīndē kōmbā tēlē tabdā shirab nīgā tī kōmbā tēne, drēbū kēpār dō pākwa dīndē yōng dēsā, drēbū shēk dō, pāñyō sā drēbū sā wā tī shēk dō. Kōmbā shēbā tēsē dīla dōme sāvāra, kēpār dō yur dēsā, drēbū tā tēsō mē bā rō, pāñyō bā nīpā dō yōng yur, drēbū dīndē yōng dēsā. Tēnā, milamna dire toben drebu dire sevisara negab toben drebu songvisara ana milamna tado sangye de chanju semba thon juse tagbare se ko sangye ya da rawa ani chanju semda sembeng chawa shajul samlu shukchim budadu ko milamna te tangra ngaranjo ni me ko lega shukchim sem kaje shukchim chenati milam tan dewa o tin heshe ko chanju sembalia chanju semda sangye kovan thobeta tishe jimbato mede melam tandu ti ko shechi tangi wada mangcho tangi wada da nyingje da tabda chanju ge sem kombara cheba te che dilase chanju semba dela to me sawara kebar do yurdese debu tene nebato yongju kebar do pawan de yongu de segura tanda kari yongu resne chendela tena milam na tado sangye de chanju semba nam thongwan yoruse sangye de chanju semba sangye ko ma sam tanju sa ngone maumba na sangye da sangye le kyabsu chiwasu do sangye ngone ra zambulen phewa sangye chomden de phewa do o tine she sangye tamme ba yore te zulba kyabsu do ya da nyima ta wa te sam ta de ni chale milam dangu ser do razo nam ju sam ta ka ga shenda she sam ta de ko shenda she ji samrita mado yagdo samrita to yo maro kumji kore yo mardo o di insur ninje chamboda tabda chaju ye sem kombar cheba te se dela to me sawara debu kebar chu pawan de jongu de se tena melam na ta do sanje da chaju sem ba thwan yor melam sambo shenda ja me bar jo te mai ge melam sambo ya che ko melam na sonam ko milam tabu tala sose milam tan de ta de samsanya o danga di milam tangi yo asam da che thamje milam na shire asam tende ko milam tan di san yam do thayong go ra tongba ni do thayong go ra ni milam na la chanju semda ning ji da simje dongye wa thawa ta tende shi je komba yong go da o ta du sanje de chanju semba thawa jo milam sangbo shenda ja me wan yo ro hanam ja che so yiranes ne ka chola ka la to ko range samrutanda dan jabada tezul tene jesu ira chene kolya sungip chigre so rogwa de che yebate chigre so gora lanam ja ira ne sungara sunga chebar goro se wa delia sungip chigre so bra ya kupchuche de shadadara Somar Guruse, Keji Rela Sonam da Shigi So Gachambo, Sobar Guruse, Keji Rela Sonam da Shigi So Gachambo Sandu Dese, Casitali and Rosa, Janju Sambana con Mece Coran de Pa, Shangi Tanda, Tandruban Bashil Town, Sanza Ni Lova Yena Kalayong Gore, Ase Nechi, Lutoya Tando Chamjan Regindo Karichavena, Tezokangale Kalayong de Yorno. Koran Lutoa Koran de Simja Tamji to Vechido. Le tansar do hote indiko sunam kyume cheba semrab che koyan rab chebe negap soya sunam kyuma cheba yonde gore sungora keje re la sunam da shige so kya chembo so banjur nyemo be chiba da nengen lenje chiba chawan yus o tene nyemo ba da tongba nyi kongyo ro tongba nyi kongde nyemo she chur so do da ene tongba nyi kom shu sem chanju sem ge sembe ko na tongba nyi komdo za tani 당지 녀모 당 녀모 그 박사다 제바 Paksha de la shitip sent you are Yamon but in your tipsha. Yamogi Paksha, shooting to assembly at Debatilla, shitipsha, Yamomba Paksha and Sebako, Sabe Chula do your resungora, Yamon Betribada, Nangele, Chawara, Euros, Yamobati, Yebe social assembly, and the chief. Mabutende Yohegi Paksha Yora, Niva Yora, Tela Nangele Soda, Nangele Chawara, Ursa. Do tamje do tewada ye tewa ma dios ne do tamje do tewada ye tewa ma dios garajo ye metewa da che yo de so so tanda de shibe che ne te tande mende che ye metewa yongo do chanjo symbol tende ke yongo mare ra le da ne shande to ye bashi so da ko to ta do de so a samje do simje tamje to ye de pando cho sam kadu na ka kom de ke so da simye tewada ye tewa yogur ma do 동해 대 예 메데와다 지리마 수삼 셈베미키 영야차 요마로 지승거다 뒤 탐제도 대와다 예 대와 마와 유르세 교 망보라 도번주 교 망보게 베 예도 도번주로 야부 통그리로 샤레 차와 지금마레 샤레 팜바 두그데 팜바 바시마도 두에 요마르 네바시 요마르데 미수이나 텔레 야부 통그리로 Joe Mambo, Toban, you don't want yourself. Yula Negi Yula Negi Mitiban, just a little Nazar of today, young Shigioto. In a tilling Nebaka, you are Maricasha, Che Mambo to Tesulia, Lang Emba Mambusa, Yunanga Tipatania, Chetelia, Jebu, Togaruchi, Chuniti, Tandria, Shuriam, you are the Tobuyan in the Yungu. Casa Lula Negi Mitiban Jurose. Similar so Roa Nigi, Soja Tober and Jodese. Same day Coles Roa, Kivecha all of Pelto Roa, Maraduna Shingi Leloda, Dead Shadana to do under my Kivecha Kawinako, Goldurungo, no Shineda, Tindel Changbasu Lodelia, Kawatiti, the Karasam Tamada Sosobe, Rawazi Dugora. Negi Mitiban Jurose, Tenica, similar so Ruanigi, Soja, Tober and Juro. The number Shebala, Soba Yonde, Cabers and Tobo said, Tenitana Shishine top set, when she took any machine to work. The next to read you top ye, Jidan come to do top sooner, Jidan come Shenda Shendo, Sangela Soba Teruja, that the really church Soba Tende Yogoda. Sanjay Changamla. Chevere dose. The dollar sugar Yandose, what about the chicken? Don't shun it to you. And of my doses, yeah.
So here, then the text turns to, again, emphasizing that as it was taught in the Pure Field of Engagement Arya Sutra, always familiarize yourself with skillful means by closely placing mindfulness on the good qualities of bodhisattvas who work for the welfare of sentient beings at all times. So again, we should reflect on the kind of benefits of these, that whatever activities a Buddha, a bodhisattva undertakes are for the benefit of other sentient beings. And so even when, so here, it then turns to discussing the kind of benefits that come from, again, having this union of calm, abiding, and special insight. So here it says, those who become familiar with compassion, skillful means, and the awakening mind of bodhicitta in this way will undoubtedly excel in this life. So here, this is kind of describing the sort of temporary kinds of benefits that will come from developing these sorts of qualities. So it's discussing the sort of benefits or the results that occur when we engage in these practices. So first, it describes how Buddhas and bodhisattvas will always be seen in dreams and other pleasant dreams dreams will also occur, and appreciative gods will protect you. So here, when we reflect upon the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, or think about them all of the time, we have this kind of strong admiration for them, strong faith in them, and it's something that we recall on a regular basis. Then that may occur in our dreams as well. Now, most of the time we sort of are caught up in our own kind of thoughts, and it is those sorts of things that we are hyper focused on that then occur in our dreams when we go to sleep. But if we are able to develop these kinds of attitudes of love and compassion, and the wisdom realizing emptiness held with this attitude of bodhicitta, then even in this life, we can be blessed by seeing Buddhas and Bodhisattvas in our dreams, or having other sort of positive, good dreams. Like, for example, it doesn't necessarily need to be like seeing the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, but it could be about the Dharma. It could be about like hearing the Dharma. So there are those who even while they are dreaming, because they have created such familiarity during their waking hours, are even able to have an understanding of like, oh, well, everything is like a dream while they are within that dream. And that can kind of deepen their understanding. So here, the kinds of thoughts that we are cultivating in our mind while we are sort of conscious or awake are things that can definitely leave impressions on our dreams. And so here, as we have talked about with the quotation from Shantideva, where he explains that once one has given rise to bodhicitta, it's an unceasing stream of virtue. It explains here, there will be immense accumulation of merit and insight at every moment. So when one has given rise to uncontrived bodhicitta, it brings about this kind of benefit that, say, even when you're sort of sleeping, you are engaged in virtue. You're doing something that is meritorious or positive. And so when we are able to have this kind of attitude or intention of bodhicitta, then even our livelihood can become something that is really developing that attitude of bodhicitta. If we've set that intention and created the kind of conditions for that, we are able to, even while we're living our life, sort of be engaging in virtue or accumulating merit for Buddhahood. So here it says then too, afflictions and other bad states of existence will be purified. So when one is able to develop this kind of understanding of emptiness held by bodhicitta, and engage in that repeatedly, one is able to get rid of the various kinds of afflictions, as well as these, and it refers here to sort of other bad states of existence. These are like a latent imprints of our negative actions that we have created before. Through developing a union of method and wisdom, we are able to get rid of those afflictions and purify other bad states of existence. And it says too, you will enjoy much happiness and mental peace, and at all times a great many beings will cherish you. When we have are under the control of our afflictions and have strong kind of like self-cherishing and attachment to ourselves and hostility towards others and so forth, this really creates mental unhappiness. When we hold ourselves to be more important than others and are working for only our own aims, we're likely to create a lot of enemies and likely to experience a lot of mental unsettledness. So here, when one has an attitude of bodhicitta, you will enjoy much happiness and mental peace, and a great many beings will cherish you. When you are helpful and kind and loving towards others, they cherish you. They naturally look on you in a favorable kind of light. They think well of you. And so here too, it says that physically too, you will be free of disease. You will attain supreme mental faculty, and thus will achieve special qualities like clairvoyance. So again, we are able to sort of have this kind of certainty and dedicating our activities to this sort of great enlightenment in the temporary term, we will gain these kinds of good results, like achieving special qualities like clairvoyance and so forth, and having a sort of body free of disease. Now, again, this is something that is not certain. It's not like like, oh, every good practitioner is not going to have any kind of disease. We could have situations where people have created really intense negative karma in their previous lives. And so it's not certain. There can be those who are really truly amazing practitioners who do experience a great deal of physical difficulty and so forth. So this is not something that is like set in stone. But it is by this union of method and wisdom that, again, all of these temporarily good states come about, as well as attaining this kind of supreme mental faculty and achieving special qualities like clairvoyance. And then it continues with these benefits. Then you will travel by miraculous power to innumerable worlds, making offerings to the Buddhas and listen to teachings from them. So this is sort of, we'll have to stop there because we're out of time. But this is, again, discussing the kind of results or benefits. Oh yeah, again.
Thank you, Geshe, for these teachings. Thank you, Katrina, for such a clear translation. And thank you, everyone, for joining us online. We'll see you again next week at the same time, 9 a.m. Pacific time. And we'll end with our dedication prayers.
May the spiritual teachers who lead me on the sacred path, and all spiritual friends who practice it, have long life. May I pacify completely all outer and inner hindrances. Grant such inspiration, I pray. May the lives of the venerable spiritual mentors be stable, and their virtuous actions spread in the 10 directions. May the light of Lobsang's teachings dispelling the darkness of the beings in the 3 worlds always increase. Idam Guru Ratna Mandalakam Niryatayami. Due to this merit, may we soon attain the awakened state of Guru Buddha, that we may be able to liberate all sentient beings from their suffering. May the precious Bodhi mind, not yet born, arise and grow. May that born have no decline, but increase forevermore. In the snowy mountain pure land, you're the source of good and happiness. Powerful Tenzing Gyatso Chenrezi, may you stay until samsara ends.